Lauren's in the studio.
All right, we are live on YouTube and we're about to be live on Instagram. All right, and we're live on Instagram. We're live everywhere.
Awesome. What's up, y'all? It's another episode of Real Talk, Real Growth. I'm back. Lauren's back. Rex is back. I'm Miles the Millennial.
And it's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
And I'm Coach Lauren Jackson. Hey, y'all.
Hey. Just got through Valentine's Day last week. I hope everybody had a successful and happy one.
Absolutely. It was amazing, actually.
That's good. Guys, before we start today, make sure you are, we got about 10 people already that are tuned in. Make sure you are in here sharing it with everybody that you see. And also make sure you're clicking the link to subscribe. It's in our bios and in our stories to subscribe to our mail list. That way you can receive all the updates that we send out every single week before every episode, and just with tips and tidbits that we have about things going on in our life that are going to help you. So today's episode is going to be on how to address and not avoid. So I know this is going to be a powerful episode. Before we get started, does anybody have any updates that they want to talk about?
No really updates, but if you guys are looking for a couples counselor and you're in Houston or Texas in general, let me know. Boy up. I just had a couple that have been working for the last 3 months. They recently just got engaged 2 days ago.
That's awesome.
So that just shows like the work is actually being done. And if you're willing to commit, I promise you'll get the results. So that's something you're looking for and you're located in Texas. Hit your boy up.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I love it. I saw your post about that too, by the way. I was excited about that. I have a workshop that is coming up. I'm also dropping the link to our email list so people can join and we can pin it on IG. But I have a workshop that is coming up February 26th. It is called The Unspoken Truth About Marriage. And we're going to be talking about the missing key ingredient that will help to restore intimacy, trust, and excitement into your marriage. So it is going to be so good. So the link is in my bio as well to join. And to hop on while we still have our promo sale going. And you'll get workbook, replay of the call, live Q&A with me. And so it's going to be a phenomenal time. So I've been preparing for it. So that's what I got going on. And hey, YouTube family, I see we've got 12 people on YouTube rocking with us. So hello. So that's what I got going.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to, delay the conversation any further. So let's hop right into it. Rex, I know you usually have a set of questions for us to go through. So how, for the lovers, how can we address things and not avoid them?
Absolutely. So the very first question we're going to get this bad boy cranked off with. And if you have any questions in the chat, please send them in if you're struggling in relationships with avoidant conversations. So yes. Question number 1 says, why do people tend to avoid difficult conversations in relationships? And what are the long-term consequences of doing so? Right? So why do people tend to avoid conversations in relationships? And what are the long-term consequences of doing so? I can crank this bad boy up if y'all want me to.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm right behind you.
Absolutely. So just off the back, people avoid difficult conversations simply because it makes them feel uncomfortable, right? It makes them feel uncomfortable. It's scary for them because maybe they grew up in a household where difficult conversations weren't had, and if they were had, they got verbally abusive or somebody got physically abused, and that puts you in a position to fear the person that you're talking to versus sitting in it and feeling like you're a partner and feeling like you guys are going to work through it together. And I also feel like people tend to avoid the tough things because they're scared of what's going to happen on the other side, right? They're scared of their partner's response. They're scared of the decision that they may have to make on the other side, or they're scared of the accountability that may come from the conversation that they may be having. And the long-term consequences of that is essentially you building a relationship where you find, where you guys talk about surface level things, but the hard stuff never gets touched. So, and then you get to a point where there are certain moments and times in a relationship where there's huge blow ups, right? And you're wondering, where in the hell did all that energy and animosity come from? But it's the resentment, it's the tension that's been building over the months and over the years. So that's the long-term consequences of it, from my perspective.
I love that. I love that. Coach, what you got?
Yeah, so I think that, and I think you said the question was on the floor was why do we tend to avoid? Is that correct, Rex?
Yeah, why do we tend to avoid difficult conversations? And what are the long-term effects?
Because we want to stay comfortable. And a lot of times we're afraid of the response, and we're also afraid of losing the other person. And anytime we're so afraid of losing the other person that we aren't afraid of losing ourselves, that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen long term is our relationships don't get better, it's not growing. And then one thing happens and it literally destroys the relationship because we waited to have a conversation that couldn't wait. And it was all because we didn't have, sometimes we don't have language. I do agree the way we were raised, I call it our training. It plays a huge impact on how do we address, and I call them moving forward conversations. So I don't even call them tough. I don't even call them hard as if there's something that can't be done, because that's not true. It can be done, but it's not what you say, is how you say it. And most importantly, the way you present it. And so I just don't think that we've had enough space to really lean into that. From a childhood perspective. And so we expect adult people to do things they weren't taught to do.
Yeah,
That's good. That's really good. I'll go next. So I think the reason why we avoid the conversations is a couple of reasons. One, a lack of safety, right?
Yep.
You don't feel like this is the space, the place, or the person that you can have this type of conversation with is going to get thrown back in your face. It's going to be a very aggressive or mean conversation that has name calling or all different types of conversation that aren't healthy. I also think it's one of those things where, like you guys already are hitting on, if you come from a space or a place in your life where those conversations weren't safe, then you will project that into your current relationship, even if that person isn't at on the same type of timing as the past. But I think something that we're leaving out is a lack of feeling worthy, right? The guilt and the shame aspect. Because if you are a type of person that is super apologetic about everything that happens, you always feel like you're the problem, and problems keep happening, and you never can figure out why. A lot of times you internalize that and you start to feel guilty. You start to feel ashamed for whatever it is that's causing the conversation in the first place. And when you don't feel worthy, you usually won't be the one to bring something up in the first place, because you're sitting there waiting for them to be able to throw all the things that you've done back in your face. Well, how are you going to bring this up when you did this in the past? So you can't have any conversations that really need to take place because your own guilt and shame is weighing on you, and you feel like, well, I'm not really worthy to be bringing this up in the first place. And the long-term effects of that is, of course, first off, miscommunication, because you're never having the conversations that need to be had. And so you both are interpreting things in your own ways without actually getting down to the root and understanding of each other. But the other thing that happens is burnout. Like you will feel burnt out with the relationship itself, and you will literally just stop trying because you're having the same problem over and over and over again, and you're talking about it, or even in this case, you're not really having the conversation. So you don't really have any way to resolve this with this person. And the final thing that happens is, if you choose to stick with this person and you don't leave from the burnout, what you find a way to do is to escape within the relationship. You then dive into escapism. And so now you start coming up with all these ways that allow you guys to avoid the uncomfortable conversations and just go do whatever it is that keeps you peaceful, whatever it is that keeps her peaceful. And you guys just avoid the problems as if they don't exist. And so long as she can sit down and watch her soap opera, and you can sit there and watch the football game, or you can go out with the guys to kick it with your people, and she can kick it with her people, well, we don't have to really get along in this household. So long as we ain't arguing, I mean, it's cool. So the long-term effects, you get that miscommunication, which leads to burnout. And if you stick through the burnout, that starts to lead to escapism.
Man, that's amazing. And I actually want to add two more points that just came to my mind, right?
Mhm.
Why do people avoid having the difficult conversations? I think one is because they lack the emotional vocabulary to express themselves.
Hmm.
Right? You don't know how to say I'm angry. You don't know how to say I feel offended. You don't know how to say I feel abandoned or I feel rejected. You don't know how to say these things. And one thing that comes up is I was having a conversation with a couple not too long ago, and a part of the conversation is they're having intimacy issues, right? Where the way the husband initiates, it doesn't necessarily arouse the partner. But when she shuts it down by saying, I don't like that, he feels rejected. So he just falls back, right? He doesn't initiate no more. But she still wants that initiation. She still wants that intimacy. He wants it too, but he's scared of the rejection and she's scared to ask for it because she doesn't know how to. So now they both aren't getting what they want simply because they don't know how to have the conversation. They don't have the words for it. So we had the conversation about it. I gave them the words to talk to the partner to learn how to ask for what they need. So having an emotional vocabulary. And then number two, they lack the ability to regulate their emotions, right? A couple things happen when you don't know how to regulate your emotions in difficult conversations. One, there's a blow up, right? That's that the argument is exacerbated, right? And number two, somebody shuts down, right? They stonewall, right? Feel like you're talking to a wall, which makes you even more angry, even more aggressive. Number three, somebody gets violent. The minute I raise my voice, I see hands being clenched. I see things being thrown. People is getting to my face. Partners are face to face now, and we're mushing each other, so we get violent. Or number four, it turns to a breakup. Right? Person, I don't got to deal with this. I don't deserve this. So they leave. That leaves you feeling more abandoned. It leaves you feeling more rejected. So the next time they come back, you would much rather not have the conversation at all and make it seem like it's nothing versus having the conversation and getting it addressed. Right. So that's the second piece I wanted to add.
That's good. That's really good, Rex.
Yep. Okay, bet. So let's go ahead and segue into question number two. What are some of the biggest fears people have when it comes to addressing issues? And this is almost kind of piggybacking off of the last thing we just talked about, but we can just continue to redefine it.
That is going to just lead to another argument.
Yep.
I know that's one that I've dealt with. Is what's the point in bringing it up if we're just going to go down the exact same route again? And we're, by the time it's all said and done, I'm not going to feel hurt. You're going to feel attacked. We going to both shut down and feel a type of way. And then we got to apologize and try it all over again. Right. That is something that I think is a tough thing to get over, especially when, like you said, from some of those other symptoms, because you two don't know how to speak each other's language. Right. So since you guys don't know how to speak each other's language, and I think at a certain point, people kind of start to understand that, but they don't know how to say it. Yep. And so for men, oftentimes what we say is you don't want to hear the truth. You can't take the truth.
Yep.
Right. When I give you the truth, you shut down because it's not nice. Well, the truth ain't always nice. Right. That's how we oftentimes will internalize that. And a lot of women will say, you don't know how to talk to me and respect me when you're trying to address things. And two, whenever the shoe is on the other foot, you can't deal with me calling you out on what you do wrong. Right. So all that just leads is some more arguments. And I think that's a very big fear is why should I bring up this conversation if every single time we get into something deep or try to address a problem, it always leads to us arguing.
That's good. And the follow-up to that for me is what's the fear is from a man's perspective, man, she'll never get me, bro. You won't understand it, right? Especially when we're talking about gender role differences. When we talk about having the responsibility of being the provider, having the responsibility of being the one that's supposed to be a protector, having the responsibility of being the one that's supposed to lead from the front, right? How can I try to get you to understand the weight of my role when you never have it for yourself? Right. So I'm not even going to have the conversation because it's pointless. Maybe you can hear me, but there's nothing you can do to take my role. There's nothing you can do to alleviate some of my pain. Now, once again, I can't speak for all couples because then you have some women that are willing to step up and play that role. You got someone that's willing to step up and do whatever it takes, while others are like, you know what, you do a man's job, right? So it's hard for me to have a conversation with a person about what a man is feeling or what a man is supposed to do when they never have those feelings. So I'm just not going to have the conversation at all because she'll never get me. So I think that's another fear that people have in the midst of having conversations. What you got, Coach?
Both of what you shared was so spot on, and also too, I think it goes back again to that comfort level. Like, we don't want to be uncomfortable, and we don't want, and that perfectionism, right? Like, we don't, and people pleasing, we don't want our partner upset with us, and so we will negotiate our value, our worth, our values. We'll negotiate it, or just not value our own boundaries for the sake of, and we call it keeping the peace, and we make it seem like it's something noble, when really and truly you're just avoiding it because you don't want to face it. But you can't overcome something that you won't face.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good. You know, Rex, when you started talking about like, she'll never understand me, it triggers something in me that I know I felt before, which is, if I bring this particular thing up that I'm feeling, now I'm going to look inadequate or insecure.
Yeah.
Right. So now that I brought up this particular problem, now it's like, let's just say, okay, what's something men can feel insecure about? Okay, let's say the way their woman dresses, right? They feel like the way she went out the house that day wasn't really becoming, or however you see it, of a woman that's supposed to be in a committed relationship. But if I bring it up and say that what you wore really made me feel uncomfortable, now I'm inadequate. Now I'm being insecure. Now I'm trying to police you. Now all these different things, you know, say whatever it is that you want to say, come up. And so I'd rather just not address it at all. That way I'm not looked at as less of a man, right? And so I think that that's another aspect of that, is when you don't feel like you're going to be understood, the misunderstanding can then devalue how you want them to view you, right? If you are supposed to be a leader, but you bring up, let's say, the fact that, hey, baby, I don't know if we're going to have the money this month to cover this. You might need to do this, or I might need to do that. Well, if I bring up that conversation, now she's going to know how serious things are, you know, with our finances. And now she's not going to trust me as the head of household and the leader, right? Versus if we address it, that might not even be the case that takes place. So it's a lot of times we'd rather keep the facade up of whatever we want them to believe about us, and won't address the real issues or problems that we feel, because then it exposes that we do feel things. And to know that you're vulnerable and that you feel things can feel like weakness.
That's actually really good. So listen, if you're in the comments, if you're a young lady in the comments, I have a question for you. What is the appropriate way for your partner to ask, to tell you that they don't like what you're wearing, or they don't feel comfortable with where you're? What's an appropriate way for somebody to address you that way, especially an intimate partner? For the fellas in the comments, I want you to answer this question. How have you addressed that to your lady, and how was it received? And for Coach, while they're typing in, because hopefully they give their responses, I want you to answer. If your partner has an issue with your outfit, whether it's too tight, whether it's too revealing, what can he say to you about that will be okay with you? Or would you prefer him not saying anything at all? Because you should do what you want to do.
I'm not joking. I was about to say, I should do what I want to do. No, in all seriousness and all fairness, for me, if my partner didn't like something that I was wearing, I would expect him to just say, like, babe, I think you look great in this outfit. However, where we're going, I don't think that this outfit matches the environment that we're about to go into. So, you know, if you're okay with it, I would prefer you in the royal blue dress, or like whatever that other preference is. You know, in order for me to know, like, okay, well, this is another option. I think a lot of times women feel like you tell them what to do when you don't give them another option, especially if you were a strong Black woman. Listen, we need an option. Don't come with your only recommendation and you don't have no other options. That is not going to work for us. It will not turn out in your favor. It will absolutely work against you. So come with a backup. Come with a backup. and it can land better than that. But I also think too, shit, like saying to your partner, I'm not trying to control you. A lot of times we don't speak to the insecurity that we already know is speaking to the partner. And so we allow that insecurity to speak louder than our words and our actions. So saying like, I'm not insecure. I know that you only want me and I only want you. The reason I am bringing this conversation up is because we're going on a family vacation. You know, it's not a vacation. So I would prefer you to put your boobies up. Okay. You know, like, and at that point, I feel like a person that loves you and knows you, they know that if you're telling them that is for their good.
That's
It's
good.
a protection of how people perceive them.
That's actually really good. One thing my lady does, if she don't like something I'm wearing, she won't say that. She'll say, let's just say this is the penguin I'm putting on. She'll say, how you feel about the white one?
See, give it an option. Give it an option.
Boy, because sometimes I get triggered. Like, you know how hard I worked on this outfit.
Right?
What you mean?
She was like, how you feel about the white one? Like, man, I obviously chose the pink one.
Yeah, that's actually true though.
Yeah.
I'd almost be forced to have to be like, dang, and not get mad.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Like
do we have any? Go ahead, brother.
I was gonna say, I also think that from the man's perspective on this, you know, if you know your woman is wearing something she don't necessarily know if it's appropriate for where you're going. I also think that sometimes there is a time, me being a very vocal person, sometimes we address things that we need to let people figure out for themselves, right? And we're always trying to problem solve something. And me and my lady don't really have this problem, but even in her own journey, just with her being a young woman, when you're younger, you like to wear things that accentuate your body a little more. But as you grow a little bit more and you mature a little bit more, you get to a place where you're like, I kind of value comfort over other things. I kind of value a look that may be less showy of my assets than other things. And I've never had to say that, but my lady has gone on her own walk that has shown her like, hey, I don't have too many clothes now that I think about it that don't really show off that I got curves. It would be nice to have some other things because there are places that I go where I don't want my curves to be the thing that everybody is looking at and be the center of attention. And I think that sometimes just being supportive and letting people go through that on their own, people kind of learn and will realize like, hey, this journey or where I'm at, not really where I want to go at this point in my life. Not to say that you shouldn't call it out if it's wrong, but I think it serves a purpose sometimes. Just be quiet and let the person go through their journey because wisdom will come.
That's good.
We do have some comments on IG. And well, before I hop there, we had one on YouTube. Larry, looks like, I think it's Osmond. He said, our every move will feel like you're walking on eggshells. That was his thought. And then is that Zambies said, I would honestly want them to acknowledge that this may be an uncomfortable conversation, but that is coming from the heart. Just so I have a heads up to get in that mindset and not be defensive. That's coming from the heart. Then Diamond Janaea said, never had this issue, but I value my man's opinion. Just keep in mind that person's feelings, and I agree with providing options.
That's good.
That's good. So the speaking to the second comment from the Zambi one, say hers one more time.
I would honestly want them to acknowledge that this may be an uncomfortable conversation, but that it's coming from the heart. Just so I have a heads up to get in that mindset and not be defensive.
Absolutely. So let's speak to that real quick. There's two things. So I always tell every couple, and I have to remind myself, start every conversation with love and end every conversation with love, right? That's just like the sandwich method. Start with love, give it some intensity in the middle, and then end with love. But there was a thing in a book that I read, and one thing the guy started doing is he would say, he needed to remind his partner that he loved her before every hard conversation. He said, hey, babe, just let you know, I love you. And but there's a conversation that I need to have that, you know, I feel like is getting in the way. So he said, I got in the habit of doing that so much that after a while she starts saying, "But I know you love me, just go ahead and say it."
Mhm.
But it had to be a reminder, because sometimes it doesn't feel like love. Sometimes it feels like an attack. Sometimes it feels like you hate me. Sometimes it feels, especially depending on what type of month it is for your lady,
Mhm.
you don't know what it's going to feel like for her personally. So if you start everything with love and you let them know, yes, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but I feel like it's necessary for us to have. But I do want to let you know, like, before we have it, I do love you. Um, I, this isn't me trying to avoid anything. This isn't me saying I'm going to leave. This isn't me saying that there's somebody else that's doing it for me, right?
Yeah.
It's me saying I have an issue with us, and I feel like if it's not addressed, it's going to go, it can create bigger problems in the future. So that can definitely be a way that you can address it.
That's good. Coach, you said something good about calling out the insecurity. That's some really good advice, because what's hidden is the stuff that the person is trying to, people purposely don't know they're insecure about something, or that they're triggered by something, or that they don't want to come off insecure or triggered by something. But it's better for you to give them permission to say, hey, look, I know this might be how you feel. You know what I'm saying? I just want you to know that I'm not going to look at you that way if you feel a type of way about this. I know that has helped me, because there's been times where I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm feeling insecure and talk around it so much with my lady. And then when she says it, like, is it because you feel like I'm going to look at you this way if you tell me this? And I'm like, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag now. It's a lot easier for you to be vulnerable at that moment. And because they've already reassured you, like, I'm not going to view you this way. And so it is important. And I think that also comes with just really understanding your partner, where they come from, the things that they hold so dearly to them, values they hold so dearly, because oftentimes that's what they're basing everything that they're saying and all of their opinions off of, is something that reaffirms this particular value statement about themselves. We have confirmation bias, right? And so we will do everything and anything to reaffirm what we believe to be true, versus going about things in a way to seek truth. So it's good to call that out and reassure that and soothe the triggers. That way the deep conversation can take place.
Yeah, that's powerful, actually. That's
Mm.
good. Anything else you want to follow up that, Coach?
No, I think Miles nailed it.
Okay, bet. So let's talk about this then. How can couples differentiate between a healthy pause to process emotions and straight up avoidance? Coach, since the smirk just told it all. Talk to us.
So I live for a good pause.
Yeah.
Like the kind where, like, I don't say nothing, I just let you figure it out. I think a lot of times, because the pause can be so uncomfortable, the person that may have like put a question on the floor or what have you, they'll try to like rush it, like just go on with something else, or attack, you know, what's it, I guess you don't have anything to say about this, I'm gonna say this, you know, that kind of thing, because they're not comfortable with the pause, because it's like, I don't know how the other person is doing their math. But to be able to tell between, is it a pause or an avoidance, it is in how long it takes for them to reply.
Yeah.
Because if I ask you a question that is a question that, you know, you may want to take time to think about, then it's best to articulate that. This isn't something that you can just, you know, think about like right on the fly. It may be something that we need to think about 2 days from now and give you more time. But I think the reason we fall in the trap of trying to ask the question and answer it as well for the other person is because we haven't checked their capacity level for the day.
Mhm.
And I had this conversation earlier, and I said, you know, a person can have capability but lack capacity for the day. So when you want to have a moving forward conversation, temperature check and just say, hey, is this a good time to talk about? And then the topic, whatever that topic is, because if they don't have capacity, just because they can have capability, they may avoid, because like you're putting them on a hot seat. So don't be afraid to pose your question and then hush your mouth and let the other person process, because they are processing what you said. And if they care about you, even if they can't answer you in that moment, they will set a deadline and they'll honor the deadline.
Mhm.
So that's how you know the difference.
That's good. What you got, Miles?
Man, I got some good stuff. All right, I'm gonna give y'all 4 ways that you can know, or some ways to know, and then what to do in these circumstances. The first way you're gonna know is you look at the past history, right, of these conversations. In the past, when you guys have had to take a break, or you or the other person that said you need a break, does the conversation happen at a later date? If the conversation never happens, then that could be a sign that this person is being avoidant, right? But if, like Coach says, they say, "Hey, I need a few days, or I need a week, or what, I need to get past this period. Like I got tests and exams coming up, it's finals. You know, when I get through with this, we can have this conversation, right?" Do they honor that? And then when it's brought back up, they make the time and the sacrifice for it, because it's not always going to be comfortable. But they have to be willing, if you've accommodated them at a certain point, that they need to come and sacrifice some things to have that conversation with you. So if the past history shows that they will address it, then you know right then and there that it's a pause, it's not avoidance. The second way is you need to know, do you have a teammate or an opponent, right? If you got a teammate, your teammate is not out to get you. And that is something that I know I had to accept for myself. And I'm sure all of us at a certain point, if you've ever been hurt by people in the past, it's very easy when you see certain traits in your partner that you saw in people who hurt you in the past, that you start to equate them to doing the same thing that those other people were doing. And so you will think that because they're putting a pause on it, that, oh, you're trying to run away from it. You can't deal with the conflict, this, that, and that, because the person in the past used to do things to manipulate to avoid the conflict. But if you have a teammate and not an opponent, you know that that's not that person's intentions. So you have to soften your heart and really accept the fact that this person has your best interest in mind, and they wouldn't be putting a pause on it if there wasn't a good reason for it. The third thing is communicate that you need a break, right? There was a point 3 and point 4 I'm gonna tell a story about. So point 3 is communicate you need a break, and point 4 is alleviate any excess barriers that could be blocking the conversation. So even just this past week, me and my lady were riding around, and we were having a biblical conversation and applying it to things in our lives. And I won't get into the specifics, but the conversation was a little uncomfortable. And she was like, "Babe, I need a second. Like, I don't feel like talking about this right now. You're overwhelming me." First off, I know that I can be that way, because when I get to talking, I can yap. I have so many thoughts and I like to throw them out there, but that's a lot for one person to deal with, especially out of nowhere. They didn't even sign up for this conversation. I had it on my mind and wanted to talk about it. And so communicating that you need a break, that's a way for both of you to say, all right, and you got to be the selfless person to sit there and say, I can't sit here and make this all about me. If they aren't capable of the conversation right now, I need to relax. And the point number 4 is alleviate any excess barriers that could be blocking the conversation. So what ended up happening was, probably about 30 minutes later, I was like, you know what? She said she was hungry a while back. Let me go get her some food. Got her some food, brought it back to the car, gave her some kisses on her forehead, told her, look, eat your food. I love you. Get your mind right. In 30 minutes, let's try this conversation again. She was just hungry. She just needed a break. She was overwhelmed. She was tired. She was stressed out. She needed a chance to eat, relax, be on her phone, chill, and then we were able to have a much better conversation afterwards. So you have to be able to alleviate barriers. Coach, you alluded to this. If your capacity is a lot, take some things off the plate, right? If your wife, I see this a lot with men. I feel like they try to have these conversations, but they come home to their wives and their wives just don't want to have a convo. A lot of times because she's burnt out, because she just came home, she had to cook dinner, take care of the kids, all these different things. She doesn't have the energy to have that conversation. It's the same thing with if you're trying to have intimacy with your partner, but your wife just don't have the energy for it. Take a few of those things off her plate so that when she comes home, you can sit there and relax for a second, and now there's room for conversation to take place. So that goes both ways. That's just coming from a male's perspective, but women as well, if it's vice versa. Take some things off your man plate so that way he can be receptive to it.
That's amazing. Before I go, first of all, Miles, thank you for sharing everything you just said. Those stories, they always go great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Do we have any comments before I go?
A lot of like trues, laughing emojis. Miles, you are a yapper. Aaron, you think you're funny, bro.
Bet. So the question says, how can couples differentiate between a healthy pause to process emotions and straight up avoidance? Let's talk about it, right? So how you be able to tell is where your mind goes during your pause, right? A negative pause or an avoidant pause, you're arguing with yourself about how much your partner got you. Right? you taking a walk, you taking a break, but you made that. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know I got options? I don't got to deal with this. Like you are arguing with yourself about how much your partner got you messed up, right? It's negative self-talk. So you are preparing your mind for more BS once you go back into the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Or you may find yourself leaving, right? Getting in the car, leaving, and not answering your phone, right? You'll block them. Not only will you block them, you'll leave your phone at the crib so they can't get in touch with you. If you share your locations, you may end up turning your location off. You want to create this panic. You want to create this avoidance. You want to create this feeling of abandonment with your partner because you want them to feel what you're feeling. That's unhealthy, right? All of that is unhealthy. Now, let's talk about what healthy pauses looks like. Essentially, it's saying, hey, I'm not going to lie to you. I've stepped outside of my window of tolerance. If we continue, this won't be a fruitful conversation. So I just need to take a break. During that break, right, you do some things that you don't really hear too much of. You can pray. Miles mentioned this in an episode before. If we pray before a conversation or in the middle of a conversation, it's kind of hard to have negative energy going back into it. Mm-hmm. So number 2, worship music. Come on now. He saw the best of me might do a lot for you in the conflict. Right? Number 3, you focus on self-regulation. You breathe. You know what I'm saying? You are actually calming down your nervous system. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it may not feel good. Yeah, you may be angry, but you regulate yourself, because if you don't regulate yourself, you'll go back into it with the same mindset. And then another way that you know that it's a healthy pause is you're thinking positive thoughts. Although I'm mad right now, I love my partner. Although I'm mad right now, she is somebody I still want to spend the rest of my life with. This is just a moment that we need to get past. This is just a bump that's in our way right now, but we're going to figure out how to get past this. That right there is how you know whether it's a healthy pause or an avoidant pause.
That's really good. Oof. And when you said that, what I thought about is unhealthy equals I'm gonna make you feel it, right? It's all about that getting even, like, okay, bet. Versus healthy is let's call out what we're feeling and just work to calm them, whether that's personally or together, before we pick back up on the conversation.
100%. With couples, I always say when they're in the midst of conflict or they're disagreeing, I always ask, how do you feel right now? And sometimes they pause. They're like, what you mean? How I'm pissed off? I'm like, no. What's underneath being pissed off? Like, how are you feeling? And then I always follow up by saying, but where do you feel it at? They'll say, I feel it in my throat, or I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my neck. They feel that tension, right? So then it's time for you to calm them down. Okay, let's do the breathing exercise real quick, and then we're going to jump back into this exercise. So that's good. What you got, Coach? You got any follow-ups?
No, I'm up and taking a note.
This is good. Okay, we had a couple questions or a couple comments. Miss TT said, what if he shuts down for a month without prior warning, though he mentioned he's tired?
A month?
Yeah.
Hey, that brother don't want to have that talk. What they consider a healthy pause, no longer. Well, some coaches and some experts say 30 minutes to an hour. Mm-hmm. Right? Some coaches say no more than a couple hours, right? Mm-hmm. But the Bible says before you go to bed, don't go to bed angry, right? Fix it. So going a month of avoidance, what that does to the partner that's waiting is you're in your mind creating your own stories, right? Now you're walking on eggshells. Now you feel tense. Now you don't want to remind them of the conversation because you want them to bring it up. But the fact that it's been 30 days to a month, it's like now you got to even question, what are you really running from?
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, if you are living together and you're avoiding having these hard conversations, I'm pretty sure intimacy isn't happening. I'm pretty sure love isn't happening. I'm pretty sure affirmations isn't happening. I'm pretty sure check-ins on a day-to-day basis isn't happening. I'm pretty sure cuddles at the end of the night isn't happening because you don't even feel like doing it because you don't even feel the connection. So if it does come a time where you have to wait 30 days, then I would say it's probably that time to see a professional.
Yeah, I agree. Coach, did you want to say something?
I was gonna say message Rex.
Yeah. That's a fact. I agree wholeheartedly.
We had another one too.
Bet. DeAndre said, for the fellas, let's talk about how leading with a humble apology will get you grace, i.e., a positive response from your partner versus pointing out their small mistakes. That is a fact, bro. If you will apologize first, like even if you are seeking an apology for something that they've done to you, let's say you have a conversation with your lady, you feel like they wronged you, you go off a little bit, now she upset, you feel like you the one that got wronged first. I promise you, if you apologize first for the way you responded, and then you can even express and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I know I shouldn't do this. When you said this, it made me feel this way, yada, yada. What ends up happening is your lady is kind of, first off, she already recognizes that you realize what you did was wrong and how she felt emotionally. But two, now it holds a mirror to her. Because it's like, okay, first off, he didn't apologize. So now I have a responsibility here to not be the one that's trying to act like, I didn't do anything wrong. But two, it calms the emotions. Like we already said, it calms the emotions. I was watching a podcast clip, and I don't know who it was and what they were saying, but they're like, you got to really be cognizant of the environment in which you're trying to have a conversation in the first place. If it is not the right time, the right place, the right environment, if one person is not coming from the right energy, or if you're reading the energy and this energy is too tense, it is okay for you to say, yo, this conversation is getting a little out of hand right now. And I think we need to take a break and come back to this when we're a little more calm, because right now there's no love here. And if we don't got love here, we're going to be going at each other's throats. And then we're going to both be sitting here trying to apologize to each other for what we say and do. Right. So Dre, you definitely on point with that. That apology goes a long way to calm things.
That's good. What else we got?
I don't see any other comments unless you see some more on your end, Coach.
No, that was it.
Okay, cool. Let's tap into this next question then. Okay. What role does emotional intelligence play in having hard conversations, and how can someone develop it?
Who want to go first?
Go ahead, Coach.
You can see it written all over my face.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to how aware are you willing to become? I think a lot of times we hear like emotional intelligence, but it also emotional intelligence is connected to intro perspective. So how are you taking an audit of you and how you show up, and what fuel did you bring to the fire that may be keeping you disconnected from not just your partner, but even in your professional life? Because the way you lead at home is the way you lead at the job, because you're the same person. And so when you think about, okay, how can I develop it? By getting feedback from others who are experiencing you.
Yep.
Because you may think that you're providing a certain type of experience that, quite honestly, you are not providing. Yes. And you're not going to know that you're not providing it until you ask for feedback. So act like the stores who send you, hey, do this survey. I'm going to give you $10. I'll do this. They're asking because they know from a planning perspective what type of environment they wanted to create for you. But they don't know if you are experiencing it at the rate and the level in which they designed it for you. So that is key to getting to really know thyself, is to get feedback from others who have an experience from you.
That's amazing. I like that. How would you respond to that, Mr. Miles?
Man, I would say this. Coach really hit it. I'm gonna try and just go a little with like some tangibles for what she's saying because she already hit it. It has to be internal. And she already hit on the main one is ask the people around you what you're doing. So first off, what role does it play? It plays every role, right? Because without emotional intelligence, how can you empathize with another person? And if you can't empathize, you'll never be able to understand where they could be coming from, know how to communicate where you're coming from, and get on the same page.
Yeah.
EQ is also the basis for you to actually get to what I call root problem solving, right? Most of us are at surface level problem solving. And men, we struggle with this deeply because we are so avoidant of emotions and have been conditioned to be avoidant of emotions. We're only comfortable talking about a handful of emotions. As Jason Wilson would say, he'd say, think of a crayon box. And there's like the 8-pack crayon box and then like the big 64-pack crayon box. 8-pack, you got the basic 8 colors of the rainbow. That 64-pack has magenta, indigo, all these different shades, teal. It has all these different variances and mixtures of different colors.
Mhm.
The average man's emotional toolbox is about 8 deep, right? And Rex, you talk about this all the time when you talk about the common emotions that men are so used to expressing. But when you get to that EQ up, your emotional vocabulary, your ability to understand and express all these different emotions, the teals and the deep sea blues, your ability to go down that route is a lot easier on you because you have been able to go in and really discover them for yourselves. So you get to root problem solving because you're no longer just staying up here at the surface because you only know how to communicate at the surface. You can actually go deep into what is the root problem. And it's not something that you run from. Now you actually know, like, this is something I need to do. And the second part of that question was, how can somebody develop it? Realize that you are a problem too, right? And this goes to what Coach just said when you ask people about that experience that you give them. Look, I be thinking that I'm helpful all the time. Sometimes you're like, Miles, you just be talking too much sometimes. I just be shutting down. All right, well, guess I need to work on that, right? That was something I really needed to hear. So when you realize you're a problem too, you also don't become so harsh on the people in your life whenever they bring you problems, right? You're able to sit there, coach, and say, you know what, I done been there too. Let me not go so hard on this person because I've been having my moments. Two, you need to read books that are vulnerable, right? Like, bro, get out of the surface level self-help industry, 48 laws of power, like go past that. That is probably the tip of the iceberg of understanding emotions. And it's from the wrong place. It's about gaining an advantage of people. And that's not where you need to be coming from, right? If you truly want to lead, you truly want to be a partner, you need to get vulnerable books, right? I always bring up Jason Wilson because to me, he has mastered how to be relatable and be vulnerable. And he can relate to so many men. But there are a lot of books out there. Maybe you need to read some books. Fellas, read some books by women expressing their vulnerability. Ladies, you need to read some books about men expressing their vulnerability. So that way you can see the point of view that the other your partner is experiencing. We all share shared experiences. So you need to read books that are vulnerable. And the last thing is you need to be submitted to God and understand his grace. Because when you start understanding the grace that God has for you, you really realize how much of a hypocrite you are to not have grace for other people. Right? It shines a very big light to say, like, how can I be so mean to people when God has been so nice to me? How can I be so short with others when God didn't turn his back the last 10 times that I said I wasn't going to do this particular thing and I did it and disgraced them? So understanding God's grace allows you to then give grace to others too. So those are my three ways that you can get better at it.
Man, that's amazing. I don't know what just happened. My computer completely shut down.
Rick, she said that's amazing. You ain't hear none of it.
No, I was like, well, I don't know. It's got to get back on. Goodness.
Well, what's your answer, brother?
You know, that's my default response. My answer. To emotional intelligence, how can it be created?
Mm-hmm.
Is my connection good for y'all?
We can hear you.
I can hear you.
Y'all can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So, you know me, every time we talk about emotional intelligence, I like to break it down. right? You have self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skills, right? Once you're developing, the way you can develop emotional intelligence within your relationship is a couple of different things. Thing number one, you start reading books on relationships, right? You read books on relationships, the Gottmans, How to Make Love Last, Seven Principles to Make a Marriage Work, the book Love and Respect. You start building up your knowledge and intellectual property when it comes to relationships. Number two, you put yourself around other healthy couples. If I watch my dad disrespect my mom or talk crazy to my mom, I'm going to feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. But if I watch a man of my father loving my mom, if I watch him deal with her emotions respectfully and calmly and with proper masculine energy, then I'm going to believe that that's the way you show up. So putting yourself around healthy individuals and healthy couples. Number three, go to therapy. Right? Go to couples therapy, because couples therapy, you're going to have your mediator. Once again, somebody that's going to help you facilitate a conversation, help you understand yourself. And then number four, which has been my favorite, you start using your journal and asking yourself reflective questions, right? Deep questions about how you feel, about why you feel, but also always go deeper. So, like the huge exercise that always worked for me, it was called "Why Does That Matter?" Right? Um, so you'll ask yourself the main thing. It pisses me off every single time my lady goes out with her friends. And you ask yourself, why does that matter? And you write it down, right? Because she goes out with that. Okay, why does that matter? Because I'm not there to protect her. Okay, why does that matter? Because somebody could probably slip something, or she may have too many conversations with somebody else. Okay, why does that matter? And you continue to ask yourself, why does it matter, until you can't come up with anything else. And then you get to the core root of why it truly matters. And once you're able to get to the core root of why something truly matters to you, now you have the vocabulary to talk to that person about what's really going on, right? And so if it's insecurity, if it's a trust thing, you now have the words for it. So that right there is how couples, because I know you guys touched on what emotional intelligence is, but that's how you can build it as a couple.
That's really good.
No, that's really good. I have to write that down. Why does that matter? Because I think that goes back to what you asked us earlier about the pause, because pausing gives space and presence for you to identify why does it matter, versus giving this, inauthentic template email response to why it matters or don't matter.
Right.
That's good.
And that's as real as it gets. That's as real as it gets. Okay, so I think we have time for one more, right?
Yeah. Before you do that, Dre said the church has cheated on Christ countless of times, and yet he forgives them and grants us his grace, even though we aren't deserving. That same grace should be practiced within our relationships.
Perfect. That's amazing. We have a lady that said podcast to inspire. Excellent advice from all three of you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. That
All right,
must
you
be
want to do
from
one more, Rex?
that's from
We got about
YouTube.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Guys, make sure before we do that, subscribe to the newsletter. Okay. The link is in our bios. It's on, I know it's on my story, it's on Coach Moore's story. Click that link, subscribe to our newsletter, guys. We want to make sure we have you guys plugged in. I think we just lost Rex again. So
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have to switch my screens. That's all, just to swipe and see the questions. So the questions are going to be, what practical steps can couples take after addressing an issue to ensure real change happens? What practical steps can couples take after addressing a real issue to make sure that real change happens? Would you about to say, Coach?
I literally had this conversation today. And I tell the story about how sometimes we apologize for stuff that's really not the offense with our partner or with another person. And so one of the things that I practice doing when I apologize, whether it's to my sons, whether it's I'm in a relationship, family, I acknowledge what I believe was wrong, my part in it, but then I also, again, will say, but moving forward. The issue is we will apologize with no action items of what's going to happen next and be able to say, hey, next time I'm going to not respond when I know I'm already irritated about my day. or not engage in this level of conversation because I know, like Rick says, I'm outside my window of tolerance for this.
Mhm.
And then be able to give them the action of what are you going to do, and then ask them, how does that feel? How does that sound to you? And would you be okay with holding me accountable to that? The reason a lot of our unforgiveness is such a big issue for us is because we're asking for forgiveness, A, from an issue that may not be the issue, and B, we don't have no action items on what you're going to do differently. So you're bound to repeat the same cycle, if you ask me.
That's good. That's spot on.
That's good.
I,
What you got,
I was
Miles?
going to say, and this goes with what she was going to say. I think it's the question needs to be asked at the end of all of that. Once you guys feel like, okay, you feel better, I feel better. Whoever the person is that the transgression is on, or if it's a mutual thing, whoever the person that needs to do the corrective behavior, both you need to do it. The question needs to be asked, what do you need from me going forward? Right. And so if there was a problem about the person not feeling reassured, what does reassurance to you look like? And how do you want it given to you? Right? Give that person a tangible, because the tough thing is when you're expressing something that you don't like, but then you can't tell a person how they need to do it to do better, to be able to really protect you in that particular area or help you in that particular area. If you can't tell them, you're going to make it very difficult. I'm not saying that a person can't figure it out, but it's very unfair to always leave people in a space where they have to figure out how to do better for you. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in that trap of saying, well, you should just know. Right? I feel like you should just know what to say. I feel like you should just know what to do if I'm telling you that you make me feel this way. No, tell that person, like, it's okay, bro. I swear to y'all, I have opened my mouth and told my lady straight up, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I need you to remind me that how you see me. Like, to tell me that you see me as this amazing man. Sometimes I need you to tell me that you trust me. Sometimes I need you to reaffirm to me that the mistakes I made in the past are not holding me back from who you see me as today, because those are fears of mine. Right? It's okay for you to say that to that person so that they can show up as who you need them to be. Then the second thing is check in on them, right? Check in to see if what you're doing is working. So if I've been reaffirming you in this particular area, check in a couple weeks, a month. Hey, I've been trying to do this. How do you feel about that? Has it been working, or are there some adjustments I need to make? Then the third thing is a person who is having the behavior change for them, you need to affirm the change behavior when it shows up. If you are not positively reinforcing the things that your partner is doing to be better for you, you are going to have a tough time at seeing a change that is sustained, because they're not going to feel like it's worth it. They're not going to know if it's working. All they're going to still get from you is everything that they do wrong, and they're never going to feel like they're appreciated for what they do right. And people, we have animal nature within us, the same way you train a dog or train a puppy. I'm always say it, or train a baby, is with positive reinforcement. What you reinforce positively, they will continue to do. That is men and women alike. So praise your partner when they are exhibiting the behavior that you really needed to make you feel better, or whatever it is. Praise that. I don't care if you think it's the bare minimum. Praise it anyway, because you weren't getting, quote unquote, the bare minimum before, and it was causing all the problems. Do you want it to go back to that, or do you want this person to be able to build off of doing the right things and take it to higher heights? Praise them for what they do right.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. He just went ham real quick. The last thing I'm going to say, because they both touched on really great points, is focus on one thing at a time, guys. Right? If you go into this arguments with a to-do list, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to touch me like this, I need you to make sure you do this. You give all of these tasks, you're already going into it and you're already feeling overwhelmed. Right? My dad always says, son, what's the fastest way to eat an elephant? Say one bite at a time. One bite at a time. So if there's three main problems, one problem is the lack of intimacy. One problem is the lack of vulnerability. One problem is we aren't communicating well. The very first thing we need to start doing is not trying to have more sex, right? It's we need to start talking. Right? We need to start talking. So focus on one problem at a time. And majority of times, every situational problem or relational problem that you're going to deal with has to do with communication. If you learn how to communicate, if you learn how to tell somebody what you need, what you desire, what you're willing to be agreeable with, what you're willing not to do, and what your non-negotiables are, and then you're also able to hear them, right? Listen to them, validate them, empathize with them, then there's nothing that y'all can't do together, right? Even if you don't like something, you got to set a boundary. That's totally fine because communication is a part of it. So everything that they say is great, but the last thing I just want y'all to hear is don't overwhelm it. Don't try to kill three things at one time. Literally, focus on one thing at a time until you master that thing.
That's good. I'm going to apply that in my own communication.
Yeah.
Too much of a yapper sometimes. I need to slow it down.
I'm telling you. That's a masterclass, folks. Listen, it's free now. It's free now.
I don't know how long. Sign up for the newsletter, guys. We're so glad that all of you tuned in. This was great response from all the audience. If you guys have more questions or topics, make sure you reach out to us, drop them for us. Share this with friends, family. Let them know every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time. There are 3 individuals who have worked on themselves, who are continuing to work on themselves, who are having real talk for real growth. I'm Miles the Millennial.
It's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
And I am Coach Lauren Jackson. And this has been our time tonight. This has been so good.
Peace, you guys. And make sure you sign up for the newsletter in our bios and stories.
Exactly. Until next week.
All right, y'all. Deuces.
Deuces. All right. I'm ending our live there.